another morning monologue with Dale Elliott. And people, today I have a very important topic to speak about that a lot of people, we don't know who to turn to or what direction we should attack this. I wouldn't say it's a problem or an issue, but this task that we have to do when we migrate to the States. Now, taxes. I don't feel like we speak a lot about the importance of taxes. And I feel like it is something that we always have to figure out as we go along. Now, bear in mind, I am not a tax professional. I don't have any tax skills to show you, but I can only speak from experience and tell you the things that I know is very important to taxes. Now, when you come to the US and you become a permanent resident or you have a work visa, it is your duty to file taxes each year. Now, if you have an employer, chances are your taxes are going to be taken out each paycheck. But if you are a sole proprietor or you own a LLC, it is your duty to go and file the taxes at the end of the year or per quarterly, whichever way you decide to do it. Now, the reason why this is important is because there are a lot of things that you cannot do if your taxes aren't filed. And there's a lot of things that when you are going to do them, they will require your taxes. For instance, in order to be a citizen, you will need to provide a certain year of tax returns. In some places, when you are trying to go and rent an apartment, you are going to have to provide a certain year of tax returns. If you're trying to file for somebody, you are going to need a tax return to prove your income, and also whether you are now going to need to get an affidavit of support to get a person when you're filing for either a husband, a wife, or a child, or a sister, whoever you're petitioning for to come to the US, you're going to need to be able to file taxes. Now, if you haven't filed your taxes yet, or you haven't filed taxes since you've been in America, depending on how long you've been here, it is actually like less serious. Or if you haven't worked, or you haven't made, I think it's like, I don't want to give you a figure that I am not sure, but if you haven't made significant amount of money, you still should file the taxes, but I think the penalties is less, but you should always file. For instance, if you're a citizen of the US, you have to file taxes every single year for your life. No matter, even if you don't live in the US, you're still going to have to file taxes. Now, I feel like a lot of us get confused because when we come here and it's tax time, tax time goes a certain way. Either the person receives money from the government after they file their taxes, or they have to pay money to the government. Now, the person that is employed that receives money from the government, your taxes are a bit simpler because you can either you go and find a tax professional, a registered CPA. Please do not listen to the person who is like, yo, let me bring it to my tax person and they can, them can make you get back 10,000. Please just do it the right way because you don't want to mess with the IRS. The IRS is the only person in America where you will not win. Like the IRS, when they couldn't get Al Capone, they charged him for tax evasion and sentenced him to 15 years. Remember Blade? That man from Blade? I don't remember his name right now. He went to jail for taxes. Wesley Snipes. So much people in America have charges of tax evasion. And you can get in, like it's a serious penalty here. So I am telling you to go out there and find a registered CPA. Now, if you don't want to do that route, you can go online and you can use tax engines like a TurboTax. And then you will have to now input the information that you've received throughout the calendar year You input that into TurboTax, and then they will do it for you. But filing taxes in America is essentially you stating to the government how much money you have earned. So now they can know what tax bracket you fall into, and that way they know how much money you will have to pay or how much money you will receive. For instance, if you have a child, you can get a tax credit of up to $2,000, which is like you're just basically going to get $2,000 as a tax credit. And a lot of people, when they get the tax money, they used to they spend it and they do a lot of foolishness. So I feel like during tax time, we see a lot of spending. A lot of people use that tax money to do a lot of stuff. So for instance, if you were ever in Jamaica, I used to hear my father said to me yeah man, me I deal with it when I tax time. Because tax time is when people get extra money. Especially if you're employed, you kind of get extra money. But the little things in taxes that aren't explained to people is, for instance, during taxes, you will have to find out all your profit and all your expenses for the year. Now, whether that be they want to know how much you paid for rent, how much you paid for health insurance, how much you paid for a babysitter, how much you spend on gas for the year, how much you get paid, did you pay into Social Security, stuff like that. So you can go on your bank's website and you can download all the credit and bank statements, and you can now go through the bank statements and you can open up an Excel sheet, and then you start adding up, okay, then this is what I spent on gas for the month of March, for the month of April, for the month of May, for the month of June, and then you give that total, and then you can be like, okay, then this was my gas expense. And you do that for every single expense you have. Therefore, you can now submit this to the IRS, and then the IRS will now determine, okay, then this is the amount of money we are going to give you back. Plus, if you have a child, you get money from that as well. So if you are employed, I would say for starters, when it's not as complex, I would tell you to find a registered CPA, especially if you are thinking about filing for somebody from Jamaica, or you're thinking about becoming a citizen here. You need to start filing your taxes. Say, for instance, you have the 5-year gap to be a citizen. Please have that 5-year worth of tax returns, or the 3-year gap. Have that 3-year worth of tax returns, because it's important. Especially even if you're here and you just want to buy a house. A lot of people say you want to buy a house and you did one thing and you end up with $30,000-$40,000 in one go. Although you have this money, if you haven't filed taxes for the last 2 to 3 years, you cannot purchase a house. Even if you qualify for a mortgage and financially it is proven on paper that you can afford all of this, if your taxes aren't filed, you are going to have to wait. So a lot of people can purchase property in the US, but because they fail to file taxes, they won't be able to, because there is no evidence. There is no evidence from the IRS to prove that this is what you make, this is what you spend, this is what we pay you per year, or this is what you pay us per year. Now, there are multiple different kind of taxes, as I said before. That is more on the personal side, but you can also file taxes if you're not employed. A lot of people believe that if they don't get a 9-to-5 paycheck that is taken out, they cannot file taxes. No, you can also file as a sole proprietor. So say, for instance, you're out there and you don't have the typical 9-to-5 job. Say you drive Uber, you drive Lyft, DoorDash, or you do like a lot of piecework. You do some construction work and your boss pay you per month. and it is not always it pay you like a check or something, but it is not like a typical 9 to 5 where every 2 weeks you get this check and you're sure of this check and your taxes come out of the check. You can still file taxes. No, your filing might be more complex because it is not as streamlined because you don't have that employment history. But what you can do is keep a record of every single transaction that you have made. So say for instance, you're a welder or a carpenter or you drive Uber. Uber has a record of every single trip that you have made, and they will make out to you a 1099 form. If you do Cash App and you get paid via Cash App, Cash App will provide you a 1099 form at the end of the year. A 1099 form is basically from a company stating to you that, hey, I have paid you X amount of money for the year. So wherever you are working, even if it is say you are doing a construction work, you need to keep a record of all the money that you've received, or you can now request a 1099 form. When you're a sole proprietor, I think you are going to have to submit a W-9 to the person. Hey, bear in mind, I am not a tax person, but when I am doing sole proprietor work, they would always request a W-9 from me. And a W-9 sometimes is, not sometimes, but a W-9 effectively is like my name or my company name, and then either my social security or my EIN number that is attached to that company or me. And I would submit that to them, and then at the end, they would give me a 1099 form. The reason why 1099s are so important is because at the end of the year, you are going to be receiving that between January to like March in order for you to file your taxes. Now, if you already know the amount of money that has been paid, that is good. Keeping the 1099 forms that is sent to you is good for your personal records because the IRS will not necessarily request these unless you are being audited. So when you get the 1099 forms, now you start adding up, okay, this is what I made this year. But then it gets very important because now you can now go through your personal spending and say, okay, then I spent $50 on gas to go to work every week. That is tax deductible. I spend $20 on lunch every day for 7 days a week. 2, 7, 14. Yeah, so $140 for food. So then now when you get all of this information compiled and you say, hey, I spent this on health insurance, spent this on car insurance, I spent this on the babysitter, or however you do it, and then you provide that to the CPA, the tax preparer. Please use a CPA and not a person that is not qualified, because you don't want to mess up on taxes. You don't want to get audited, and you don't want to owe taxes either. So what generally happens is, as a sole proprietor, you submit this to your CPA, and then your CPA in turn now put all the information together that you have submitted to them. Bear in mind, it is not their job to gather the information. It is your job to get the information to them, and they file on your behalf, and then you pay them a fee. Now, that is when you're a sole proprietor. Now, if you have a business out there, now this is super important for you as well, because filing your taxes have a lot to do with, one, the standing of your business, whether it is up to date. 2, whether you can now receive loans, business credit cards, rent business office spaces. So it is super important for you to file taxes. Now, the common thing with a business tax and a sole proprietor tax is you pay money to the government. When you are doing a typical tax form, which I think is a W-2, if, please fact check me, but it should be a W-2. When you receive a W-2, that is, they have already taken out taxes. A W-9 is you submitting it to a person who employs you, and then they will have the IRS know that, hey, I paid this person however amount of money in the form of a 1099. So you get a 1099 form from them, you give them a W-9. When you're an employed person, you receive a W-2. Now, all of this is online. I don't study this. This is just my personal experience because I have been in the multiple different categories of taxation. So the sole proprietor, the person will calculate how much money you have, how much money you've made, your profit, your loss, and then they will now submit it to the IRS and determine how much money you owe the government. So when I was younger, I used to think that before I moved to the States, I felt like, oh, every year you would get tax return, you get money back. And I start realizing the older I get, no, some people get tax return. Some people have to pay into. Some people have to pay the government every year. So now, as sole proprietor, you will make sure to keep what you have, because when you bring it to the CPA, now all you have to make the CPA know is, yo, this is all the information I have. And the CPA, being a professional, will now find out what are the legal tax ways in which you can now pay the least amount of money as possible. Now, on the business side, the LLC side, which is why I always tell people to go and get a LLC if you're a sole proprietor. Please open your LLC, because this side now, you pay into taxes at the end of the year, but you have more benefits in comparison to a person who's employed full 9 to 5 person on payroll. Why I say that is because a lot of things can be considered an expense. So say, for instance, I own a LLC and the address of my LLC is at my house. So I work at my house. So a percentage of my rent is tax deductible. Also, say I buy a desk to put in my house. It can be a random desk that I don't work on, but I buy a desk and my computer is there. This is my workstation. That's tax deductible. I buy a computer to do my work with. That's a tax deductible expense. I fly to Florida to shoot something, to put on my podcast. My company, I'm flying on my company's credit card. I am paying into my company, therefore that is an expense. I have an employer. If I pay that person $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, that is me paying somebody, which is an expense for me. If I buy a TV, it's an expense. If I drive my personal car to do business, that is still an expense to be written off. So there are a lot of advantages of having a LLC, and a LLC is called Limited Liability Company. Now, not because you have an LLC means you have to employ people. You can be a LLC and be the sole person in that LLC, and you are just working on your own. But instead of you have the person pay you personally, you let them pay your LLC. Because one, it builds, you end up with another number and another credit source. So for instance, you can have personal credit and you can also have business credit. Now, to me, America has a system that benefits business owners. And it encourages people to go into a field of business, whether it is they give you credit to do so, or they just make it a lot easier. Now, if you want to open an LLC, you can literally go online. There are places that do it. You know, you can go to like a Legal Zoom or I think like a Biz Hub. swift filing. There is so much of them that you can go on to open your LLC, but it is good, and always remember to keep your LLC in standing, and that itself is tax deductible. So when you have a LLC, no matter how much money you bring in, you can factor in all those expenses, which can still benefit you, and it also gives you the opportunity to have two pieces of credit card. So now you have you have personal debt and you have business debt. Now the car that you have, you can now transfer your car from your personal debt to your business debt. But in the initial stages, when you get a LLC, you are probably going to have to be a guarantor of your LLC so that somebody is liable. But the older your business becomes, is the more you can, you can like take your name off that LLC or something. Now remember, people, this is not written in gold. This is just me explaining to you my experience and how you can, get the most out of the system in America. For instance, with LLCs, one reason why I always tell people to have a LLC, you now can determine how much money you pay yourself per month and not the business. So for instance, you can have a company that makes $100,000, but Dale Elliott makes $30,000 a year because I pay myself a paycheck and the rest of the money is in the company. So you can have a bank account, a business bank account that have 500,000 inside it, but your personal bank account have 5,000. And these are two separate entities. And you eliminate or help mitigate some of the losses that you can take. So your business can take a loss, but your personal might not have to take a loss. So it's good to have that separation. So if you're a sole proprietor, I would tell you to go and open an LLC because it helps. Even if you do a 9 to 5, but at the same time you do a little nails on the side and you get that pay, I would tell you to open up that nail company and have people pay that nail company. Because with all of this, you are going to have to pay taxes. The thing is, a lot of people don't tell you about taxes enough, or we kind of always leave it up to the tax person. And everybody always know, oh, yo, me can bring it to this man and this man can help you and sort it out for you. And I really believe that even if you are going to a professional tax person, knowing the amount of money that you spend per year is important, because when you are going to want to start making big purchases, people are going to request these stuff from you. Some apartments are going to want tax returns, some might not, So it is very important for you to have that documentation each year, especially if you want to become a citizen. Now, when you become a citizen, you're worse have to file taxes. You're in a worse situation with tax filing than a person that is a green card holder. And it is good to us, especially if if you have a 9 to 5 job, please file your taxes per year, because one, there are late penalties for filing taxes. Also, the deadline for filing personal taxes is April 15th this year. The deadline for business taxes filed as an S Corp is March 15th this year. Now, these taxes are important and you will owe it forever. Now you can, if you haven't filed any taxes and you don't know where to go and you feel like you're about to pass that time, you can apply for an extension. So I would tell you to now find a tax person as soon as possible so you can get your taxes sorted. And even if you're a sole proprietor and you end up owing money, you can now go on a payment plan to pay this money, to pay them Or if you find a good person, they will make you pay as least as possible, legally, because they will have to put their signature on whatever tax document they are submitting to the IRS. Now, trust me, don't play with the IRS. It's one fight that you will never win. So if you're here and you want to stay here and you have family that you want to file for and come here, you have somebody that you want to marry, if you want to make that easier, so you're not running around in the last part, file taxes. For instance, there's like a myth, I don't know if it's a myth, but a lot of people, even people that commit criminal activities and stuff like that, file taxes. Like them still file tax, because not filing taxes can be like, oh, so for instance, you have a nice car, you drive a nice car, you live in a nice apartment, 5-6 years pass, and you get locked up one time, and them are gonna be like, okay, so for 5 years you live in America, and we don't have no evidence of you ever filing a tax return. You know how insane that look? I've heard stories of people who have green card and never filed taxes before and travel, and when them coming back into the States, the customs officers, the border officers are like, yo, hold on. So how we don't have any record of you ever filing taxes? This is an issue. So bear in mind, this is not to scare you, but this is just to say to you, it's tax season. Tax season is when people spend the most money in America, is when people have extra money in America. So if you are supposed to do anything now would be the time. So if you have a green card and you're getting back some tax money this year, it's like $750, something like that, to apply for citizenship. So prioritize the money that you're spending. If you have a business, now would be a good time to start making sure that your finances get in order, because the more your finances in order is the easier it comes when it's tax time. I think what happened to a lot of people is that they become overwhelmed, because now they're like, yo, no, me I got to find every money I spend to try to piece together something to give. But if we do that every month, if every month we go through our accounts, or we pay somebody to do it for you, and then that is in itself is tax deductible. So there are a lot of ways to basically, I would say, win or to save in America. You just have to know. A man is a fool to what him don't know. And I don't know a lot, but I know that you guys need to know. And maybe if I am telling you, yo, tax time, go and file your taxes, now you are going to be more interested in taxes and go and check it out and figure it out. So that is just my 2 cents where taxes is concerned. April 15th is the deadline. You cannot make it to April 15th, apply for an extension and go find a tax person. Big up yourself. I'm out.